Let's now check the other join types. I will start with left outer join. This join type returns all the items from the left collection, and the matching items from the right collection. If there are no matches in the right collection, the output will contain null values. Let's take the same example to understand this join type. I have these two tables, customers and orders. And the output table is to store the result. Customers table is on the left side. So, we do exact the same, what we did using inner join. We check all IDs of the first table with the second table. The result will be the following table. This was the output of inner join. But now we still have one row in the first table, which doesn't have any matches in the second table. In this case, we take the values from the first table, and add them to the output table. And because there are no matching rows in the second table, we don't add anything in the output table. In this way, I took all rows from the left table, and only the matching rows from the second table. This is how does left outer join work. To implement this join type, we can only use group join clause. So, we cannot use join clause to implement this join type. That's all about this join type. Let's now check the next join type, right outer join. Right outer join returns all the items from the right collection, and the matching items from the left collection. If there are no matches in the left collection, the output will contain null values. In other words, right outer join is exact the same like left outer join, but the tables are in other order here. Let's see what is the result of this join type. As mentioned, we will get the following result, what we got using inner join. Now we still have only one row in the right table, which doesn't have any matches in the left table. In this case, we take this row and add it to the output table. And we don't add anything from the left table. In this way I took all rows from the right table, and only the matching rows from the left table. This is how does right outer join work. To implement this join type, we can only use group join clause. So, we cannot use join clause to implement this join type. That's all about this join type. Let's now check the last join type, full outer join. This join type returns all the items from both collections, whether or not they have matching keys. If there are no matches in one or both collections, the output will contain null values. In other words, full outer join is a combination of both join types, left outer join and right outer join. Let's check the result of full outer join. As mentioned, we first have the matching rows from both tables. This was the result of inner join. Then we check the first table, if we still have any rows without matching rows in the second table. Here we have only one row. We add this row to the output table without any data from the second table. Then we check the second table, if we still have any rows without matching rows in the first table. Here we also have only one row. We add this row to the output table without any data from the first table. So, the result of full outer join will be the following table. To implement full outer join we have to do the following. We first calculate left outer join. Then we calculate right outer join. The result of both joins is the following. After that we merge both tables. The result will be the following table. At the end we take only the unique rows from this table. So, the end result will be the following table. In this way we can calculate full outer join, and this is the easiest way to do that. That's all about this join type. Before switching to UiPath to implement these join types, let me show you the syntax of group join clause. I showed you before how to use join clause for inner join. I can do here exact the same. So, I added the same parts again. I only replaced join clause with group join clause. And because I have group here, I have to add these two parts. In this way, I group the rows of the second table, and store them in this variable. This means, I have now two variables, what I can use later in the query, row 1 and grp. Row 1 is of type data row, and represents the rows of the first table. And grp is of type 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀 of data row, and represents the rows of the second table. But I need to have the same data type for both variables, so that I can select the data easier. Therefore I will add a new from clause, to iterate the rows inside the group variable. Now I have the variable g, which represents the rows inside the group, and it's of type data row. I added the function default if empty for the group. I will explain this function later in the next videos. For now you only have to learn the following. This function is to get the default value of the variable, if this variable is empty. So, now I have two variables of type data row, what I can use to get the values from both tables. I can use them later in select clause, to get the data I need from both tables. These statements here are to implement both join types, left outer join and right outer join. To implement left outer join, you have to set the table in the first from clause, what should be as left table. To implement right outer join, you have to set the table in the first from clause, what should be as right table. You will learn more about that using the examples in UiPath. So, I will switch to UiPath to implement all these three join types. I will start with left outer join. I have again the same three tables, customers, orders, and output table. The data inside these tables is the same as what I showed you before. As mentioned, I want to implement left outer join. The left table in this example should be customers table. Let's start writing the query. I will write exact the same parts, what I already showed you, once we want to use group join clause. As you see, I define the customers table in the first from clause, because it's the left table. And orders table is the second one, which should be on the right side. Now I will use select clause to add the rows to the output table. As mentioned, I only have two variables now, what I can use here in this clause, row 1 and G. But before writing select clause, let me show you how does the result up to this point look like. We have the following two tables. Using from and group join clauses I have the following two results. The first table on the left side is the same. So, there are no changes for this table. The variable row 1 represents the rows of this table. The second table is now as following. From the first table I got the following three keys. For each key from the first table I got the matching rows from the second table. For the first key there is only one matching row. For the second key there are two matching rows. And for the last key there is no matching row. The variable G represents the rows of this table. These are the columns of the output table, where I want to add the rows I need from both tables. The content of the first two columns is from the first table. So, for these columns I will use the variable row 1, which represents the rows of this table. The content of the second two columns is from the second table. For these columns I will use the variable G, which represents the rows of the second table. But here we have to make sure that we could have some keys without any rows, like key number 3. So, let's see how to get the data we need without getting any exceptions. As mentioned, for the first two columns there is always data. So, I will use the following expressions to get the data. The first one is for the first column in the output table. And the second one is for the second column in the output table. For the second two columns I need to use the variable G. But because we could not have data always, I will use if statement. So, first I will check if the row is nothing. If it's not nothing, it means there are rows. But if it's nothing, there is no row. In this case I will select nothing. In this way I will get the data I need and no exception will be thrown. The same will be for the last column. Now select clause is done. After the query I will add this function to convert the output to data table. So, the query is ready now. Let's execute the process to check the result. The execution is finished. As you see, I got 4 rows as output. Each row contains data from both tables except the last row. Here I have data only from the first table, but no data from the second table, because there are no matching rows. This is how to implement left outer join. Let's now check the next join type, right outer join. I will use the same activities to implement this join type. I will only change the query. The right table in this case will be orders table. But as before mentioned, we can use the same query to implement both join types. We only have to set the table we need as right table in from clause. This means, I will set orders table in from clause. And here I will use customers table. The next thing we have to do is to check if the keys here are correct. In this case I have the same column name in both tables, therefore I don't need to change anything here. But in case you have different column names, you have to set the correct column name with the variables, because the variables are switched. The last thing I have to do is to change the expression in select clause. So, now the variable row 1 represents the rows of orders table, and the variable G represents the rows of the customers table. This means, the expressions must be as following. As you see, I use the variable G to get the content from customers table, and the variable row1 to get the content of orders table. The query is ready now. Let's execute the process again to check the result of right outer join. The execution is finished. As you see, I got 4 rows as output. Each row contains data from both tables except the third row. Here I have data only from the second table, but no data from the first table, because there are no matching rows. This is how to implement right outer join. Let's move on to the last join type, full outer join. As mentioned before, to implement this join type we first have to implement both join types, left and right outer joins. After that we merge both joins together. At the end we take the unique rows from the merged table. The result will be the output of full outer join. Let's see how to do that in UiPath. I have the following 3 sequences. The first one is for left outer join. Here I have the same activities, what I showed you before. I only stored the result in this new variable. The same here for right outer join. I stored the result in this new variable. So, now I have the results of both join types and 2 data table variables. In this sequence I use the following activities. The first one is to merge both tables together. The result will be stored in this variable. So, this table contains the rows of both join types, left and right outer joins. Here I wrote a LINQ query to get the unique rows from the merged table. The result will be stored in this new data table. Let's see the query. As you see, I used group by clause to get the unique rows from the merged table. Here I use the following expression to get the unique rows based on all columns. In this way, the complete row should be unique. I already explained this query in group by video. So, the output of this query will be the unique rows from the merged table. At the end I added a loop to print out the content of this table. Let's execute the query to check the result. As you see, I got the following rows as output of full outer join. I have the rows from both tables. Some rows contain data from both tables, and some rows contain data from only one table. This is the result of full outer join. So, this join type is to get all rows from both tables, whether or not they have matching keys. That's all about this join type. Before ending this video, let me summarize the 4 join types for you. The first one is inner join. This join type returns only the items that have matching keys in both collections. To implement this join type we can either use join clause or group join clause. But as mentioned, I recommend you to use join clause. You can use this clause to join 2 or more collections. The second join type is left outer join. This join type returns all the items from the left collection, and the matching items from the right collection. To implement this join type we can only use group join clause. The third join type is right outer join. This join type returns all the items from the right collection, and the matching items from the left collection. To implement this join type we can only use group join clause. And the last join type is full outer join. This join type returns all the items from both collections, whether or not they have matching keys. To implement this join type, we have to calculate left and right outer joins, and then merge them and get the unique rows from the merged table. The structure of join clause looks like this one. And the structure of group join clause looks like this one. That's all about join types.